question for African Americans has always been, what is education's purpose? Who controls it? And what is the relationship of education to the broader aspirations of our people?
The more the system denies you the chance to read and to write, the more that becomes a prize that you must have.
Black colleges were redefining what it meant to be black in America. You were pursuing a career where intellect mattered.
An educated black population could not be an enslaved black population.
If you weren't out there demonstrating, then something had to be wrong with your school.
We wanted freedom now, but whites were not prepared for any changes here.
I think they should be kept out any way possible.
A slaveholder could work a slave to death. He could rape a slave. He could do virtually anything but teach a slave how to read or write.
As soon as the war breaks out, the first thing they want is to get an education.
They wanted those schools to be as free as possible from paternalism, from racism, whether subtle or blatant.
Movements are easily birthed on HBCU's campuses.
We must love and protect each other.
We're all going through the same experience.
HBCU is somewhere where I can be completely myself.
The black college experience provides the place to be in the majority. That is such a unique and empowering experience.
This HBCU experience has taught me that anything is possible as long as you have that one spark.
Everyone, my name is Sojourner Elleby, and welcome to a fun and candid conversation celebrating historically black colleges and universities brought to you by Unbothered. Now, if you are not following Unbothered, open Instagram right now, go to the search bar, get the @ symbol, and type in R29 Unbothered. It is made by and for black millennial women celebrating the beauty, power, and strength in our communities. But don't worry, I'll go ahead and put the link in the comments section so you all at home could take a look. Now, you all at home just got finished watching the trailer for a new film airing on PBS on Monday, February 19th, entitled Tell Them We Are Rising. We have assembled a dynamic group of women to discuss the importance of HBCUs, the timeliness of the film, and guess what? They are all HBCU alumni, okay? Yes. Now, first up, we have Angela McCrae. She is a communications manager for the film Tell Them We Are Rising and an alumna of Morgan State University. She is a filmmaker communications leader with 15 years of experience in the television, film, journalism, and philanthropy. Let's give it up for Miss Angela. Now, next up, we have Carla Hall, ABC's Emmy Award-winning show co-host of The Chew. Now, Carla went to Howard University, and she you know. We know. She attended Howard University, where she received a degree in accounting, but it wasn't until a trip through Europe that she discovered her love for food, which inspired a new career path. She is very well known for her appearances on Bravo's Top Chef and Top Chef All-Stars. I've watched. She's amazing. If you want to cook one day, let me know. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Miss Carla. We have Christina Rice, who is the founder of Lux Media Incorporated, a full-service boutique PR and marketing agency here in New York City. And she's a Tennessee State University alumni. There you go. Give some love. To launching Lux Life Media Incorporated, she served as the Director of Public Relations for global fashion brand Academics, and she's produced events at the Super Bowl, the ESPYs, and the Emmys, just to name a few, like literally just to name a few. Let's give it up for Miss Christina. And last but certainly not least, we have Miss Tia Smart Young, writer, editor, author, speaker, and chief storyteller for Smart Girl Media. She is an alumna of Johnson C. Smith University. She is the entertainment director and managing editor for Latina Media Ventures. Prior to Latina, Tiaya held senior editing positions at Juicy, XSL, and Essence Magazine and websites. Let's give it up for our panelists. Now, before we get into the conversations, I just want to break down some acronyms that we'll be using. Saying historically Black colleges and universities is a mouthful, so sometimes we like to condense that and say HBCUs. And when we're talking about predominantly white institutions, we like to say PWI, just so we're all on the same page here. Okay? Great. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are all HBCU alumni. HU, Morgan State, Johnson C. Smith, Tennessee State University. So I'm interested in knowing, why did you all choose to attend HBCUs? And Carla, I'll start with you.
Interestingly enough, I'm from Nashville, so Tennessee State University was right in my backyard. Dr. Humphreys, who was the president at the time, so I could have easily gone to TSU, but you want to leave home. Right. So my sister, and actually Dr. Humphreys' daughter, Tanya, went to Howard. So I wanted to go to an HBCU because being in Nashville, I wanted to be in the majority. I really wanted to go to a school where I wanted to find out who I was. And a lot of times in the film, they talked about how you are a minority. You are like one of, like the only one, in your classroom, at your, maybe not your church. But the thing is, when the beautiful part about why I went to Howard is because I'm like, let me discover who I am rather than to be the only one. And like my real group, rather than to say, okay, I'm in the group of, I don't know, with two Black people, whatever, So just to find out who my people are, rather than to be forced into a group. And I did find my people. I found dance. I found, I was already interested in theater, but I did find dance, and I found, my quirky group.
Yeah.
For me, I was escaping Brooklyn. It wasn't like, Brooklyn isn't how it is now. When I left when I was 18 years old, so I really needed a change. And my mother was like, you don't know anyone in North Carolina. In fact, she didn't even know that I was going to Johnson C. Smith until probably like a month before, when the dorm deposit was due. And they just called, and she was like, wait, where are you located? In Charlotte? My mother just was like, okay, I'm going to give you the $100 for this dorm deposit, but I need to talk to my daughter in a minute. So I was just trying to leave New York. I wanted something different.
And if I could just jump in, one of the main reasons why I went to an HBCU is because I was a first-generation college student. So I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of first-generation college students end up at HBCUs. And for me, it was convenient. It was nearby. I grew up in Maryland, close to DC. So I'm from PG County. so it was just a great transition for me. I was a part of a program called Upward Bound, which is a college kind of prep organization to kind of help with at-risk youth. And for me, it really was the foundation. We went to Howard, we went to Cheney, we even went to University of Pennsylvania and Drexel and things of that sort. But Morgan State is where I landed. The campus is amazing, and the programs are as well.
Absolutely.
I will say, kind of maybe similar to both of your stories. So I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and that's where LeBron is from. But I gotta say that. But if you know anything about Akron, Ohio, there is a lot of despair there. And I grew up in thankfully, a upper middle class family. But if you went 2 blocks to the left or the right, it was a lot of despair and also violence. And I remember in high school, I was leaving a club. We had like a teen club. And I was probably 5 steps from the door, and somebody got shot and died. And I think at that time, I was like, I have to get out of here. And I don't know where the thought of a HBCU, I think it just was like, I just want to be around my people. I want to be around a beautiful sea of Blackness and out of, a violent city that is still to this day probably even worse than it was. And I stepped onto the lawn at TSU, and I just saw all of these beautiful Black people, and I was like, I gotta go here. And then they gave me a scholarship, so that was it.
Right. That made it a lot easier.
The icing on the cake, but yeah, that's kind of what made my decision. Really, I wanted to be out of Ohio. I wanted to be out of Akron and out of Ohio, and then I just got to TSU, and you know how beautiful the campus is, and that was what made me decide to go there.
That's fantastic. Now, Angela, as we mentioned, Tell Them We Are Rising airs on PBS this Monday. Now, why do you think this film's release is so timely given our current political climate and involving matters and movements such as Black Lives Matter?
Well, first of all, it's never been done. You know, this is the first time ever that our story's being told. And HBCUs are institutions. So that's one of the things that we want people to resonate. It's a part of American history. It's the foundation of culture. It's the foundation for a lot of movements that allow us to even be here right now, to be able to have a voice and a platform. And, you know, it's interesting that you asked about the Black Lives Movement. We actually had a panel and screening in Los Angeles. And Dr. Melina Abdullah was on the panel. And she's one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter based in LA. And what she resonated with the audience is to let them know that we have a responsibility. You know, the civil rights movement was birthed on HBCU campuses, which sometimes get overlooked. And we need to continue that legacy. And whether you're, because it is a young population, it really drives change. And with, as far as, you know, regards with our current climate, because that is an ongoing conversation around this film, the documentarian Stanley Nelson, he actually produced the op-doc with New York Times, and it was called Black Colleges in the Age of Trump. And it really, you know, for the past year, we've literally been talked about in not the most pleasant way, you know, from his first meeting with the, you know, with the HBCU presidents to, you know, Betsy DeVos not even realizing that those were the only options we had. You know, when, you know, our ancestors had, as far as education was concerned, when she made the comment about it being an option. So I think we just need to make America know, not just, you know, celebrate it, but also let people know that these are institutions that we need to continue to drive, support, as well as give a platform of future leadership.
Well, congratulations on the film, because it's really incredible. And I think when I was watching it, I realized how much I took for granted going to Howard. I took it for granted that this was offered to us and everything that I got from it. Because just walking in and talking to somebody, it's like, oh, you went to an HBCU? And like, oh, hey. But even though it's like, you understand the moment, you understand what somebody went through, even though you didn't go to the same school. And there is an invisible bond. And it doesn't mean that we're the only people who feel that. I mean, other people may feel it in their schools too, but I think in their schools, but I think it's really important that we don't take it for granted. And I think that in your film, because schools are struggling. I mean, being in Tennessee and Fisk struggling, you know, how many times has Fisk threatened to close? But I think it's because there are a part of us who are like, oh no, I'm above that and I want to go somewhere else. But also I want to say to the people at home and the people here, they aren't exclusive just for Black people. Other people are going there as well. And I don't think people realize that. And I'm sure you may want to talk about that later, but I'll just shut up.
I am so happy. You literally just kicked it off to the next question. Okay. Now, that's one of the common arguments that we receive against HBCUs. They're not diverse. You know, they don't represent the real world. So what would you all say to that rhetoric that you don't see diversity at HBCUs?
I definitely have to disagree. I know for Johnson C. Smith University, we have a large Latino population and a large white population of students, which I wasn't aware of until probably like 2 years ago. And then when I started to do some research, I realized that HBCUs are a safe haven, not for just Black students, but for Latino students as well, because we have a lot of commonalities in terms of immigrant backgrounds and just families being first generation going to college. I think it's Payne in Texas. They have 20% of their population are Latino students. So,
I disagree when they say it's not the real world because it is our role. And I feel, and I agree with you. I took it for granted because there are times even now I'm like, man, I could go back to Tennessee State and kind of really relish in the sisterhood and the brotherhood that I experienced. But it is a part of my world now, and I think it's important that we are able to continue to share these stories and that we have these safe spaces that we can talk about our experiences and our struggles and encourage people, whether, like you said, you feel like you're above that, but the richness that you get by attending the HBCU, you may not ever really fully experience through the rest of your life. So I encourage, even like you said, people of color, period, whether you're Asian or Latina or whatnot, this is an experience that is so rich in history, and that it made me very nostalgic to watch the film because I'm like, wow, absolutely, it's such beauty and history in HBCUs, and I just encourage people to, if that's your thought process, if that's your thought process, or if you're thinking about it, really, take into account. I'm sorry if I'm a little low, because I think my voice carries, but really take into account the richness and the history that you could experience by attending an HBCU.
And absolutely, if I could just second that, I'm glad you brought up that point, because one of the things that we realize right now, it's Black History Month, right? Our history is in 1 month, right? But when you think about
it, our history's all the time, but
exactly,
celebrated in 1 month.
But it's celebrated for 1 month. But when you think about it, we've been in America for over 400 years, right? Yeah. But when do we know what impact we've had on America? It's not taught to us in grade school. It's not taught to us in high school. Unless you take an African American studies class at your institution, that's the only way that you're going to be able to really learn about your Black colleagues' ancestors and the breadth of resources and knowledge and skills and culture that they've impacted this country with. And so one of the things that I like to tell my sisters on the other side of the race line is to just, ask those questions. You can find out if some of your friends or your colleagues are Polish or, Italian or what their background is, but dig a little deeper to find out what it is that your Black sisters are going through. What have they contributed to the culture? And I think HBCUs has helped me understand who I am and have pride in everything that we've contributed to this country.
And even at Howard University, just because we are comprised of mainly African Americans in New York, African Americans in California, grew up 2 different ways. I was exposed to African Americans, West Indians, folks from African cultures. Even as you mentioned, we have a huge Latino population, so it's definitely larger than what people think it is.
Right. But there are white people who go to
absolutely.
Who go to these Black schools. At Morehouse, they had a valedictorian. They had a white valedictorian, and I think the one thing that he said was, for him to go to Morehouse, it taught him what it was like to be a minority. You do not get that in many places, and so you can't understand what it's like to code switch, to go from one culture to another. And so it taught him something that it is going to stay with him for the rest of his life, that will give him a perspective that most people don't know what it's like.
Now, another critique that often HBCUs get is that they don't adequately prepare us for the real world.
Lies.
Okay, can I say? We have a panel right here of very successful women in their industries, okay? So I would love for you all to speak about how your alma mater prepared you for your career.
I'll jump in really quickly, because one of the things that I loved about being at Johnson C. Smith, and a lot of HBCUs are small. So being that we had such small classrooms, I really connected with my instructors. I used to babysit for one of my instructors. That's how close we got. And then your instructors, if you have a relationship with them, they think of you first for internships, for programs. I remember Susan Taylor, who was the editor-in-chief of Essence at the time. She came, she did a forum like this. I was the only person who asked about an internship. I left with an internship that day, okay? All right. And then my first job in media was what? Working for Essence magazine. So that kind of exposure and opportunity, I don't think if I had been at a huge, predominantly white university, that may not have happened for me there. But I can always look back on my history at Smith and say, that's the moment that changed my life, and it did.
Absolutely. I I can't imagine if I had gone to a predominantly white university if I wouldn't have felt lost and in like this big pool. So me going, me going to TSU was this closeness and this bond that I formed, like you said, with professors and other students. And I also pledged Delta Sigma Theta. Uh, so with that, and that bond and my sisters who we all stay in contact now, and our sisters before us and beyond, like that's a sisterhood that has carried me throughout my life now. So it did prepare me because I was able to lean on those relationships long after because of the bond that we were able to establish in school at our HBCU.
And for me, I mean, I think one of the things the HBCUs have a benefit for us to get from that is being resourceful. I mean, we don't have large multi-million-dollar endowments. I mean, we've had quite a few HBCUs and universities that's actually closed down because of the lack of funding and accreditation. So one of the things that I believe HBCUs have taught me, or Morgan State rather, is to use my resources, use my network, and make something out of nothing. And I think that's something that we cannot take for granted, because that's something that I think a lot of us in this room all have been there. And just being able to use your university, use your skills, and use everything in your passion and your being to go for what you know and to make it happen.
I mean, I think, in terms of my classes, I was an accounting major. So, and I remember trying to get through econ. Okay, maybe they tried to prepare me for that. They tried. But I think in terms of my classes, in terms of my professors, because being at Howard and being at an HBCU where these teachers are proud to come back and to teach us, and to be there when Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition and coming through Howard in 1982 about voting, and you get an opportunity that is starting at your school that you're like, wow, this is amazing, and you feel the pride. It is not to be underestimated, the pride that you feel when you are leaving that campus and going out in the world. So that will prepare you. Even if you are going to be a minority, that pride goes with you.
It absolutely does. Now, we've talked about this briefly here, and we've also seen in the film, the theme of identity was very prevalent. And some of the young women in the film mentioned that they felt as though they were the token black girl in their schools, and they had to be fit into a box, either the ghetto ratchet black girl or the black girl, that was very high in her class, very smart, very poised, put together. So how do you all feel your HBCUs kind of shaped you in finding who you are, and that how you can shatter some of those preconceived notions?
Good question.
Well, I grew up in a predominantly black community. So for me, it was just literally continuing on to the identity that I knew. But I think one of the things that helped me realize is that the spectrum of black people is huge. Like, I think, being from PG County and it's a conservative, town around DC. So everybody wears, New Balance and Timbs and, like white tees, like it was, right, it was foam posite. So it's kind of like a uniform. And it's, it is a unfortunate thing is that, sometimes if people was outside of that, it would be like, they would say in DC, like, oh, Bama. That would be like the term. And so for me, when I went to Morgan State, I was able to meet people from New York, New Jersey. There was people from California, people from the Midwest. It was just like a whole new like range of like black intellectuals, professionals, artists, revolutionaries, just everything you can think of. And I think that helped me be okay with my awkwardness or my, geekiness or whatever it is that I was into at that point in time in my life.
What she said. No, I mean, it's true. I mean, it's everything that you said. I mean, I think that when you realize you're not the only one and you're forced into a group, when you see that there are a breadth of people like you, you're like, okay, it's not like I have to be over here or over here. I can choose. And yeah, so, I mean, I was the quirky black girl.
It made me a proud black woman, and it's something that I've never shrunk away from. Any room that I am, and I have friends of all races, and I think what it prepared me for is to stand tall in my blackness. And I don't know if I didn't have that experience, would I have that confidence to say, yes, I am a Black publicist, but I can get you in Forbes. Like, you know, like, don't take this Blackness for granted. This is the power of my storytelling and what I can do because I can move in all rooms. You know, so, and that's what that taught me. Like you said, like, you're surrounded by people from all over. So it didn't matter about race. It just allowed us to be subjected to different uh, races and from all over the United States and everything. So I think that's what really prepared me as a Black woman.
Well, just to jump in, for me, it really helped to, I think, solidify my identity. I felt like I knew who I was, but being able to be a communications major, mass comm major, I was able to try, see if I liked being on camera. I did the radio things. Did I like writing? Was it newspaper? Was it magazines? And so I really feel like that's where I began to flourish as a storyteller and to really just explore. And it wasn't always comfortable at times because storytelling, everyone's not going to get it. You know, everyone's not going to rock with your story, or they're going to have differing views. But I think all those things made me stronger. And so it was this kind of environment that allowed me to gain that confidence for the real world, so to speak.
Absolutely. Now, one of my favorite things about HBCUs, it's all about fashion, it's all about culture, okay? We start the trends and we keep those movements going. Now, we all attended HBCUs at different times, but I would love to hear what were some of the trends that were happening on your campus.
Okay. Wait.
Set it off. Y'all know the song, Set It Off. That's all you need for a party. Set it off on the right side. Set it off on the left side. Set it off.
Set it off. Okay, I'm hip.
Okay, so...
And I mean, it's a lot of dancing. I think, you know, the Cabbage Patch, you know, all of that, Run DMC. I mean, that's when I was in school, and that was amazing. So coming from Nashville, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. Oh my God.
Well, I was in college in the 90s, so I could be seen on campus with my Timbs on and my Daisy Dukes and my wife beater. You know,
yes.
You know, because you could always tell the New York girls from like the DC girls.
Always.
The DC girls, y'all were like all super fly with the hair gelled up and stuff, and the New York girls, we'd have the ponytail and be like, what? With our Timbs on? Yeah, those were the good old days.
So just coming from the DC side of things at Morgan State.
Yes.
I was there in the 90s too. 97 to 2000. And so at that time, Parasucos, that was the big thing. We used to wear Parasucos and I think foam posits and Nike boots had come out. But as far as music, that was right when like Jay-Z and everybody was going mainstream, like Hard Knock Life. We used to have a party called the Get Jiggy.
Okay, get jiggy.
Okay, can I just tell you really quickly? When I first went to Howard, I had some overalls and boots. They were like, "Oh no!" I had to go out and get a wardrobe. I
was coming from Akron,
You'll
Ohio.
see some of that on campus still.
I had to tone down my my wardrobe because in Akron, like we had the cross colors and like the tops and the bottoms.
Yes.
So when I got to Tennessee State and everybody was like so refined, and when I was like, "Mom, I gotta go to the mall real quick and like tone this down." But I'll say, I think the best part, and maybe you all can agree, is the football games. And,
yes.
And the drum majors and that
Yes.
style, and like I love seeing it now. Like their style now. I think that was probably my favorite part of the fashion at my HBCU was the drum majors and the majorettes and all that. Yeah.
Those marching bands
Battle
threw
of the
down.
Bands.
Okay? Yeah, the Battle of the Bands.
The Battle of the Bands.
We actually took the film to FAMU. I see a couple of FAMU alumni there. Yeah. And that's where we had a 10-city campus tour, and we ended it at FAMU. And I had a chance to go on the set. Right. Now, I went to HBCU, and I never experienced this. But I guess every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m.
First Fridays.
have have a full DJ. Like it's like everybody's there. They do the whole Greek strolls. I felt like I was in like the set of Stomp in the Yard or something. and then at the end of the screening, the whole Marching 100 band came
that's amazing.
to kick off the panel, and it was like they took over the whole auditorium. So FAMU, so far, I see y'all.
All right.
Now, towards the end of the film, we saw how some HBCUs, like Morris Brown College, they lost their accreditation. Unfortunately, some of them have received shrinking numbers in enrollment. In 2014 and 2015, we saw the decline in enrollment, but thank God himself, in 2016, 2017, we've seen that resurgence of enrollment in the freshman numbers. But what do you think as an alumni, and kind of just as people as a whole, we need to do to ensure that the doors of our HBCU stay open?
This film? Seriously? This film? I think that if seeing the film has the effect on us and we went there of what we're taking for granted, I think it can sort of talk about that sparking people to say, this is what I can get from here. Because there is no place, unless you go back to Africa, where you are going to be in the majority.
Absolutely.
And to actually feel that and feel the power of being in the majority, at least in a learning situation. And I think that, and not just for us, for other people as well, because there is diversity. And I think it's sort of relearning what the HBCU will do for us today and not what it did for us 20, 30, 50 years ago.
Also jump in and say that we need to support our endowments. So when there's opportunity to fundraise for your school and make those donations, they're really important. I always look in the back of, like, you get the book, and I always look in the back and I always look for my year. And our year is always like the lowest in terms of when you look at like year 1945, they gave, $1 million. And you're like, wait a minute, why can't we give like that? And it's really important. With HBCUs, homecoming is huge. So we're going to come back and we're going to party and we're going to celebrate and we're going to buy Nelia and we're going to buy all our JCSU sweatshirts. But we also have to support this school with dollars. So if you want to get your group together and start a scholarship fund, which I have done with my sorority sisters, you can do that. You can also just give every year when they have the campaigns that are coming around. That's another way for us to give. And then to our celebrities. Our celebrities out there too. Don't forget these HBCUs. And there are a lot of, now we're learning about even more famous alumni that are coming out, because shout out to Clark Atlanta, your school, because the Amy Sherrills who painted Michelle Obama's portrait, she went to Clark Atlanta. Yes. And as her star rises, I'm sure she'll give back and continue to support Clark Atlanta, but we also have to encourage our celebrities to do the same.
I was when Nikki reached out for me to be on the panel, I kind of want to refresh some of the influential people that came out of TSU, and number one was Oprah Winfrey. Yes. And I almost forgot about that, and Wilma Rudolph, and like there's just so much pride to be able to say that I went to a HBCU that produced the queen herself. But I also I kind of was like, y'all had it.
I know. All you need to say Oprah.
Just That's Oprah. But that pride, and I do agree that if our celebrities kind of voice their experiences a little bit more, it will encourage other young people to just know like that experience is like no other, and that you can produce gold out of these schools, and they have, and they will continue, and we just need to support them any way that we can.
Absolutely. Everything these ladies said. That's how you get the ball rolling to make sure that these institutions stand strong. And I just want to also comment that, when the film airs on Monday, I'm at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central on PBS, Independent Lens. I just want you guys to know that we have our national partners, the United Negro College Fund, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, Firelight Media, as well as other organizations that will be putting a push out to help with fundraising for these universities to help students attend these important institutions.
Can I just say one more thing about giving back? I think that culturally we have it is not, how do I want to say this?
Not taught.
it's not taught how to give back, because we don't have the endowments. We don't give back to our schools. I think that's cultural. And I think we have to start very young in terms of giving back to your school, giving back to your community. Because I think a lot of times it's such a struggle just to live and get by and do the things that you need to do that for a lot of people, just going to school, it's like finding the money and the loans. And, so it's not built in like that part to give back. So I think it's a teaching thing.
I'd like to thank my lovely set of panelists for joining us this evening, and thank you all at home so much for watching. Be sure to check out Tell Them We Were Rising on PBS on Monday at 9 p.m. Thank you all so much, and have a good night.